Good morning, guys. This is Henry with Henry Buys Homes. Just want to share a video with you guys about how to properly pull comparables to establish a good ARV. See a lot of newer wholesalers or even investors that are just they're not doing it the right way, or their numbers are overinflated. They're higher than what the market's really justifying. So I figured I would record a video, hopefully add some free value. You guys get some better numbers. But anyways, I wanted to do it on a property that I've bought and sold in the past. This one's over in Mandarin, and I just want to show you guys the process of how I do it to establish some good numbers. This is a great area, so there'll be plenty of comparables. But anyways, this property, what we do is I use RPR, which is Realtor's Property Resource. Only Realtors are going to have access to this unless you have an assistant login with an agent. Anyways, you put the address in, and then what you're going to want to do is go over to Comp Analysis. This will say find comps before I have a number there. And I typically unselect beds, baths, because that can be changed in the renovation. I typically leave this checked because it's just outside, I believe, the 20% range from the actual square footage of the property. So I'll leave that and then make adjustments later. I'm going to remove all the old comps that I have in here. Because we're going to establish new comps. These are outdated now. So one thing I do first is I want to figure out what half-mile radius looks like. So I choose the radius option and I draw it out to about half a mile. I want to see how big that circle looks, because that's what an appraiser is going to base the values they establish first. If they can find comparables. Obviously, they're going to go further out, and they're going to go further back if there's low inventory or there's not as much activity. But anyways, search this area, and you can see we get some houses that sold in the past 6 months. Right now we have it at 6 months. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to make sure you're not crossing any major roads. So one major road here is Lasco Road. So we want to make sure we don't cross over that road when we're pulling comps, because that's going to be a different subdivision, different neighborhood. You're going to have different values established, different quality of homes being built or that were built. So you want to try to stay in the same subdivision within half a mile. So I want to point something out to you guys with that. As you can see right here, you've got the lot lines of one subdivision. There's like a very clear boundary of where these lots end and then going into the next subdivision. So we want to try to stay in this square that you see right here, because that's one subdivision. Now, you got one street that spills over into another subdivision, and if we're desperate for comps and we have low inventory, we might draw it over into that area. But it's outside our half a mile, so we're going to try to stick with this area first. So in RPR, you can draw a polygon, a custom drawn boundary line of where you want to look at your comps. So we're going to draw it right along that line, same way here, and to keep all those lots within the area of interest. Now you can search that area, and now all the other comps outside of it will disappear. Now you're looking at comparables in the last 6 months that are within 10 to 20% of your subject property square footage, and then you can see all the results down here. Now, what I do next is I sort by dollars per square foot sold, the price per square foot. So hit it once, and it's going to put your highest at the top. And you want to try to I try to stay within 10 years, and of course, the same bedrooms and baths. You're not always going to stay the same bedrooms and baths, depending on where you're at, and there might be, not as many. Sometimes they'll have 4 bedrooms, sometimes they'll have 2 bedrooms. I try to stay the same, but it's not always going to happen. So I try to do it by square footage, and if there's room to add a bedroom or whatever in a house, I'll usually put that in my notes too, especially if I'm wholesaling a property. But anyways, this property is one we actually added a 4th bedroom on. It was originally a 3-bedroom. It was originally a 3-2. Anyways, you can see that you've got a few comparables here, and they're selling for a pretty good amount. So pretty similar amount, and these are all within half a mile, very close. Looks like we got one on Blue Road that's pretty close exactly to the same square footage and everything that we sold ours for when we did that one. So I'm going to pick some of these other ones. I like to have at least 3 comparables, 3 to maybe even 4 if they're if it's a great area, just to justify, get a better average. But anyways, I'll pick these 4, and then if there's a difference greater than 10% from the square footage of my subject property, which is 1868, you've got to adjust for that, and you can't just go by a dollar per square foot basis because you can't increase the value of a property that's 1,868 square feet at $159 per square foot if a property 400 square feet smaller sold at that same price per square foot. You've got to adjust by dividing, taking the difference between your subject minus this, and then multiplying that by half the dollars per square foot of a comparable property. So in this case, you'd multiply that difference of 400 square feet by 80, and add that to this price, and that's what your new ARV would be for that property. So I want to show you guys how I do this, and then how I average the dollar per square foot to give me an average ARV. Not the high end, not the low end, but kind of in the middle. That's where, if you're basing your offer on that, it's a good chance that you're going to have a great number to purchase at or a great number to wholesale it at. So let's take this. My subject property is 1868 square feet. Going to subtract this first subject property's square footage, get a difference of 404, and then we're going to divide 159 by 2, which is about $80 a square foot. So you're going to take that times 80. Now we're going to add that. We're going to add this number now to this sold price of this property. And that would be your new ARV. And this makes sense because Mandarin is a very hot area. It's appreciating very quickly. It's a very hot market, great flippers market. And so this number would make sense. So I'm going to put this in the memory of my calculator so I can add some of the other properties in here the same way. So we're going to do it again for the second property, right? 1868 minus 1584 equals 284, difference in square footage. And then this is going to be, we'll say $77 is half of 155. So we'll multiply that number by 77. That's that. Add it to that property's price, and you're getting that. So we're going to add that to the memory of the calculator. So now you've got 2 numbers in there. And the one other thing I forgot to mention, I always right-click and open all these in new links because I want to check those property details. I want to make sure they all have 2-car garages, just like my subject property does, right? I want to make sure they don't have pools because my subject property doesn't have a pool. So I look at the details. I'll go down to each one, make sure there's no pool. No pool there. And there is a above ground pool there. So I might adjust for that one a little bit. Typically for an in-ground pool, I will adjust $10,000, either adding or subtracting from the subject property. In this case, I'm going to subtract, for an above ground pool, I'll probably subtract $5,000 because it's not worth as much as an in-ground pool, which is a permanent installation. And I'll take it off this price maybe, so I'll say maybe this is worth $245 instead of $250. And so just want to make sure all those, all the other houses are pretty much the same, similar lot size. My lot size here is just under 1/4 of an acre. So this lot size is, at 1/4 of an acre. This one's a little bit bigger, actually, a good amount bigger. It's twice as big as my lot. So, you can adjust for that based on the appraiser value of the lot of yours versus theirs, and you can basically divide the land value of this lot in half, and subtract it from this property's price to make it a more comparable number for your subject property that you're trying to establish the ARV on. So anyways, those are things to look for. Make sure they're all the same as far as a garage. For a 2-car garage, I'll either add or subtract $10,000. For a single car, I'll add or subtract $5,000, so on and so forth. So you got to make some adjustments there if they're not exactly the same. They'll have the same amenities. Anyways, going back to our calculator, we got the first two properties plugged in here. Let's just say that we'll take this one and take the difference in the square footage from our subject property, which is 1868 minus 1593, gives you 275, and then we're going to take this in half again, which is 72, multiply that by that number, gives us that, add it to this price of 230, gives you 249. Put that third number in memory, so we've got three numbers in memory here, right? Okay, and then for a fourth one, why not? We'll take that one for face value of the square footage because they're so close in square footage. And let's see, 1868 times 137 gives you 255, and we'll plug that number in here. Now we got 4 in memory, so this is a total of all 4 adjusted values of these properties, and then we're going to divide by 4 because we have 4 comparables. And here's your average ARV. So this is the ARV that I'm going to use now when I'm determining what an investor will pay, what a flipper is going to be willing to pay, and then subtracting the repair cost, and then subtracting what your wholesale fee would be if you're going to assign the contractor, you're going to double close, or whatever, however you're going to convey the rights to that contract to a buyer. So now we have this new number. We can take that number and multiply it by, I usually multiply between 70 to 75% because some investors are realtors and they do their own listings, and obviously they save on closing costs because they won't take a commission on their own deal, just depending on how they want to do the transaction. Some are paying 75% right now because it's just such a hot market. People are willing to pay just a little bit more to get the deal. A couple percent's not going to be a deal breaker for them. So let's just take a number in the middle. Let's say 73%. Let's say they'll pay 73%. There's your maximum allowable offer, your MAO, without repairs. And let's just say they wanted to, let's say the property is going to be $30 a square foot, right? So you're talking 1836.54. Let's say $55,000 if it was a full rehab, electrical, plumbing. You're going to update some drywall, flooring, kitchen, etc. Let's just say it's $55,000. There's your maximum allowable offer without a wholesale fee, and basically anything below that. If you lock it up below that, you have a wholesale profit. It's pretty simple, guys, right? Simple math. But I just want to make sure you guys were seeing how I do the comparables because I see a lot of people screwing that up. They're crossing major roads. In some cases, you don't have a choice. You might have to. It might be a low inventory area. It might be a very small subdivision with not as much activity because there simply just isn't enough inventory for there to be a lot of activity in the past 6 months or 12 months. You might have to go back further. You may have to go out further in more rural areas. So I thought this would help you guys. Appraisals can be tricky in areas where there aren't as many comparables because appraisals are a very subjective trade, right? It's based on numbers and data, but if there isn't as much data, it becomes a lot more subjective and based on the opinion of the appraiser. And so those opinions start to vary greatly when the data there's not enough data to support it. So just be careful with that, guys. Make sure your numbers are solid. Sometimes you can even reverse engineer the offer. Ask some of your trusted flippers and buyers. What would they pay for this property? If you've gotten pictures but you haven't put it under contract yet, ask them what they would pay, what they could do on it, and then reverse engineer an offer and lock it up. I've done that before. It's been very successful. It's resulted in a lot of deals for me. So I hope this helps you guys. And if you like this, please give me a like and subscribe to my channel. And I'll put out more free content to you guys. Hopefully this will help you out. Thanks a lot, guys.